Alright, quick update on Bitcoin. So, there's a lot of stuff going on in the charts today. I want to talk about 4 different charts in these videos. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different technical analysis patterns that I see panning out. I want to talk about the moving averages, TA. I want to talk about the momentum indicators. And we're going to wrap this all up towards the end of the video. So, with that being said, let's jump right in. Now, if we start off on the first chart, you can see we've basically been making rising channels, rising wedges, whatever you want to call them. In this instance, we had a rising wedge. This broke down. It did not hit the price target. I'm not going to waste the time drawing it. I did this before the video. You can see we had another rising wedge here. This was an ascending, broadening wedge. We did hit the price target of this. I mean, this price target was very, very miniature. So right off the back, we've had 2 of these bullish, we've had 2 of these patterns ascending to the upside, and they've broken back down to the downside, and it looks like we're forming a third rising channel. This one would be an ascending wedge, a typical ascending wedge. Now, on this, I do feel like the breakdown to the downside is slightly more likely for a plethora of reasons. We're going to be talking about the moving averages in a moment, but specifically for this chart, the 13 EMA would be the most important. We are currently colliding to the downside of this after having a break above it and a break back down. And why is this important? If we switch back to the last couple of times that we've collided with the 13 EMA, you can see we've done this time and time again since basically 48,000. You cross it, you come back for the back test, you fail, you break down, cross it, fail, cross it, fail, cross it, fail. And as you can see, we do it time over time over time again. We momentarily pop above it towards the latter half of a crab market. So you can see we basically capitulate sideways for a prolonged period in time, have this cross, you have a few fake outs, and then you normally initiate that next leg back down to the downside. So at least based on this chart, looking at our momentum indicators as well on the 1 hourly time frame, and this is where it gets worrying because, well, not worrying for me necessarily because I'm hedging myself towards a move to the downside at this moment in time for one last final capitulation, but the hourly squeeze mom is heading down, and it looks like it's heading down while we're coming into the bottom of this channel. So this could definitely carry us to the downside. If we extrapolate the price target of this, a breakdown in the next couple of hours could pull us all the way back down to the bottom of the trend, pushing us back below 20,000. And why that's very important is because that is Bitcoin's previous all-time high. If we come back for another retest of this, especially if we do it in the next 2 days or so, then you can definitely see we'd be having our 3rd week on the previous all-time high. And then if we do capitulate below that, 16,500 to 17,000 would be where the 300 week is coming in, and that's definitely where I could see us coming down for one last final leg. So this chart in of itself, lower time frames, they do look like they want to head down. 4 hourly squeeze one looks like it's kind of running out of steam right now. The last 8 hours have been very, very flat as we are colliding to the bottom of this. So based on this chart, a move back down to 19,800, the previous all-time high, could be in play. And then as you can see, we've got a pretty tight support floor over around about this range, and if we do capitulate below it, once again, you're going to see that move below the previous all-time high, and that will induce a lot of fear in the market. This is the pattern that I was talking about that is playing out and will play out in the next 24 hours. Specifically, this is going to have an apex approximately in the next 16 hours or so. With this, you can picture this as 2 different things. So right off the back, the first thing that I saw this as was a typical bearish pennant. Now, I'm really not even going to focus on the price target of this, just because the price target is down here at 7,000. I don't think that's going to be coming into play. I don't think we're going anywhere near that region. Nonetheless, a bearish pennant is a bearish pennant. It doesn't have to come and hit the price target, but nonetheless, if we do break below this support floor, it's going to be nasty. Let's say you don't want to call this a bearish pennant. Let's say you see it as wonky and you don't want to, believe as the price target would not be valid. At least you can talk about this support floor. Now, once again, you can see we are basically getting slammed into this support floor as the 13 EMA is kind of pushing us down at this moment in time. This is allowing the squeeze mom, our momentum indicator, to push to the downside. We're getting a decent amount of selling volume coming in on the 4 hourly time frame, and this really does look like it wants to push us once again to the downside. There's one more thing that this can be, and while most of these charts, in my opinion, they all look pretty bearish, and obviously I've been saying on my channel I am hedging myself for one more bearish move down to the downside. Nonetheless, I do try and keep it as as unbiased as possible, so if I do see a bullish indicator, I will speak on it. There are two different bullish things you can see here right off the back. You can see a very, very nice potential W pattern panning out right now. We're going to be talking about the inverse head and shoulders on a different chart in 1 second, but you can also see this being a half diamond bottom. Now, these half diamond bottoms and half diamond tops often play out in the stock market. This is probably the best way, this is probably the best place where you can get these signals. So if I head over to the stock market just very, very quickly, I'll show you what I mean by this, because we do these time over time again. You can see, getting rid of this, you know, you had a diamond top up here, breakdown, diamond bottom. Let's go over to the 15-minute time frame. You can see half diamond top, breakdown, break back up into a diamond top, breakdown, didn't quite hit, or didn't quite come all the way back down, but nonetheless, we do see these type of patterns playing out time over time again, and this in of itself could be a bullish indicator. I just don't think it's going to be planning out. Like I said though, I do like to talk about these patterns even if I don't necessarily believe in them. So let's move on to the next chart. Now, the next one, we're going to be talking about the head and shoulders, but right now, looking at this chart, predominantly talking about the market structure and the momentum indicators. We've already talked about the squeeze mom, so I'm really not going to focus on the squeeze mom too much, but heading over to the CM Alt MACD, this is one of my favorite variants of the MACD. You can see on the 4-hourly time frame, we've poked our head above the midline, and it looks like we are getting ready for a bearish cross. Now, pair this with some of the other charts that we've got. This kind of pull to the downside would really start bringing everything else down. This would basically mean that the apex of this would be coming very, very soon, and we would be breaking down before we can even have a chance to shoot back up to the upside. So 4-hourly MACD looks like it's overextended and heading down. I would also like to say with this momentum indicator, you can often see when the MACD crosses bullish and it goes for this big run up, you run above the 13 EMA, just like we temporarily moved above the 13 EMA here, and now the MACD is starting to head down. I just want to briefly show you. You can see MACD heads up here. We have a move above the 13 EMA, failed move. You have less momentum coming in on the second move. You have a flip above the 13 EMA and start to head down. And you can even see this flip over on the MACD is even lower than this one. So, you know, we don't have a trend line for this, but a line of best fit would be a curved line, something like this. And it does seem like we are exponentially heading lower. So MACD, squeeze mom, all of our momentum indicators really do point that we are basically exhausted and running out of steam. So that's what the momentum indicators say. Does the chart agree that we are currently running out of steam? Well, in my opinion, yes, because what do you notice when we zoom out? I mean, sure, if you're looking at the 5-minute time frame, maybe the 15-minute time frame, and you're really only like focusing on this segment of the chart, like I said, when we went back to our original Bitcoin chart, you can see this as a channel heading up. But you know, when in doubt, zoom out. And when we do zoom out, what you do notice is, you know, we are basically pumping up to the price that we were a couple of days ago. So all the way back here, 16th of June, we managed to pump up to 23,000. That was a lower high from here, lower high from here. I could keep on going on talking about the lower highs, but let's just talk about lower time frames. So 23,000 lower high. We pumped up on the 21st, 21,740. That was another lower high. Now, once again, it is, I don't want to necessarily call this a confirmed lower high until we do start breaking down from some of our other chart patterns like here, which by the way, on the 4-hourly time frame, I really do think if you start pushing below 21,000 on the dot, I mean, if you start shifting down to 20,900 and 20,800, you're probably going to very, very quickly fall to the downside of this channel. You're going to start breaking a lot of bullish patterns. You're going to invalidate any chance of having that reversal sign. And then this is when you can start to see even in the lower time frames, you would be heading down. So once again, very, very lower time frames. This is not confirmed yet because this has literally only happened 12 hours ago. So we do need to hold our horses. I want to see how we're going to react to the 13 EMA. I want to see on this chart, are we going to be heading down below the 20,000 mark? And on this previous Bitcoin chart, let me reverse a few steps. You can also see, looking at this on the 1-hourly time frame, I mean, if we draw a line like this, you can see that within the next couple of hours, really, If you do shift below 21,000, I mean, this one's 21,070, but let's call it 21,000, just in case of a wick. 21,000 on a lot of these charts is going to be the make or break it line, where you would start capitulating and making lower lows and lower highs, even in the shorter term time frames, higher term time frames. It really does look like we are getting ready for that leg to the downside. Our momentum indicators are calling it. Our squeeze mom is calling. Squeeze mom is a momentum indicator. I meant the volume is very, very stagnant and is now stepping up with bearish volume. There's really no bull stepping in at this moment in time while we are back testing the 13 EMA, which is a worrying sign, because now we've got to the point where we've flipped above the 13 EMA, we've found our invalidation point, we've come back and back tested it, and if we now don't break above, I want to say 21,600, but I prefer to say this confirmed lower high right here at 21,740, because if we come up, you know, for one last leg to the downside, if we do something like this, 21,650, and confirm like a double top structure before we start to head down, you know, I want to be prepared for a scenario like that, even if I don't think it's going to happen. I kind of think this is solidifying as the lower high already. Once again, I could be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just looking at a lot of these charts, piecing it together, and it looks like we could be getting ready. Well, we are getting ready for a big move. The question is, what direction are we moving in? Lower time frames like the 1 hourly, we are already lowering down. Squeeze mom's about to enter a bearish trend. MACD on the 1 hourly time frame was basically going stagnant throughout this entire move and is now pushing down to the downside. And like I said, we don't have far to go to the downside. We're at 21,126 as of the time of recording this. If we head down another $200, pushing us below 21,000 to 20,900, we're going to start invalidating a lot of these patterns, especially if we close 4 hourly candle body closes. The 4 hourly squeeze mom flip, before we do head over to the potential inverse head and shoulder, I want to show you the last time we had a bearish flip over here. This was very, very short-lived. I mean, we went from about 20,200 down to 19,700, which, bear in mind, was a $500 price drop, which would, once again, this would start putting Bitcoin down below its previous all-time high, which would be a scary sight to see if you are in a long, or if you are spot accumulating very, very heavily at this range. That being said, what else do we have on this chart? We've covered everything from here. The last major MACD flip we had was back here after crossing over the 13 EMA. So I want to focus on this MACD flip when we were above the EMA, because this was a very, very big, important bullish, well, bearish flip. Tried to be bullish, flip bearish. And once the MACD on the 4 hourly time frame confirmed that we were bearish after failing the retest of the 13-day EMA, which is potentially what we're doing right now, you can see we came up for one final back test. We moved up 5% or so, which I don't necessarily think we'll be doing this time, but nonetheless, if you do want to talk about this, you know, you can talk about this being a high, or this was, you know, high, this was a lower high, lower high. So if we do come up for one last leg, you could potentially see, you know, 21,500 before emming out, breaking down a lot of these macro patterns. And then that is when you start, that is when you would start to have to worry about that next leg to the downside. So the last major MACD flip was all the way here, around about 30,000, and we moved to 21,000. Am I saying we're going to have another 9,000 flip to the downside with this move? Absolutely not. I really don't think we're going to be heading down this far. I really don't think anything like that. Like I've been saying, if you do watch my channel, I obviously think we're in a bear market, but I think we're in the final capitulation, and I'm hedging myself for that last move to the downside before I do start heavily going all in on Bitcoin. Now, like I said, even though I don't think that this is going to be playing out to the teeth, I do like to talk about all the patterns that I do see, even if they don't necessarily fit my narrative. And this is one that doesn't fit my narrative because, like I said, I believe that we're in a lower low, lower high trajectory, and I think we're going to break down. Nonetheless, this is a beautiful bottoming structure, potential bottoming structure, just like the diamond, the potential diamond bottom, half diamond bottom rather, that we do have playing out over on this chart. This could be a very, very interesting chart if we do come back down to the previous resistance flip support of this head and shoulders. You can see left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and we've started to break up we've come into the 13 EMA. If we come down, technically 20,600 could be a very, very important pivotal zone that Bitcoin would need to hold. So 20,600, if we do hold that, obviously I can't rule out the possibility of a move back up to the upside, but pairing this with all the other charts that we've got, we would be heavily breaking down after this point. So 20,600 would be round about here. This would be another zone that you need to hold. On this time frame, once again, 21,000, which perfectly lines up with what we've got going over on this potential half diamond bottom slash, ascending asymmetrical type triangle. And that is basically it. Momentum indicators are calling for another move to the downside. Market structure is still intact, lower lows, lower highs all over the board. We are potentially setting up for a retest of the 13 EMA. Like I said, I don't think it's going to hold. I think the momentum indicators, well, I know Squeeze 1, MACD, they are all calling for a big move back down. Well, lower time frames are calling for a somewhat okay-ish move back down to the downside. Couple of $100 or so you can expect, but then with that couple of $100 flip back down to the downside, as you're already seeing the 4-hourly Squeeze Bomb completely flatten out, if in the next 4 hours we start dropping a couple of $100 down to 20,700, 20,800, whatever it will be, you are going to see the 4-hourly MACD flip very, very bearish. With that, that is going to probably cancel out the short-term bullish structure that we've been seeing, and these two last lines in the sand, the last one being at 20,600, which correlates to the potential back test of this inverse head and shoulders. This would need to play out in the next 4 hours or so, and as you can see, if we do slowly trickle down to 20,600 and we do not hold it, if we have a dead cat bounce, potentially something like this, retest the 13 EMA and then start to head down, you are probably going to see the market structure head down to that one last leg to the downside. So that's all I've got for this Bitcoin chart. Specifically in the higher time frames, because I haven't necessarily given too much, I haven't necessarily explained too much where my price targets are. At this moment in time, if I can find the CME chart that I have, Bitcoin CME futures, we have a CME gap down here. Let's mark this. So this would be a 13% drop down to the basically one of the final CME gaps that we've got at 18,500. We've filled these other ones, so we filled 24,600. No one thought we were going to do this when we were heading up at 26,000, but now it's looking likely that 18,500 could be one of the prices that we're going to magnetize to. But my bear market low prediction is actually here at 16,700. Call it 17,000 because this is a weekly moving average. Probably by next week we are going to be moving up because this is the 300-week moving average, and I really don't need to tell you that down here at the 300-week, when this started loading in, we're currently taking in data points from 13,800, and we're replacing them with data points from, oh no, is it? No, this is not 13,000, this is 1,300, my bad. So we're replacing price targets around 1,300, 1,400, and we're replacing them with price targets up here at 21,000 every single week. So with that being said, obviously this is going to continue to very, very quickly move to the upside. You can basically see this never really starts to move back down, and that makes sense because you're taking in data points from 300 weeks. So even when you have like a year or two bear market, it's not enough time to push this back down to the downside. So 18,500 CME gap, 16,700 is my bear market low price target. That being said, that is all I've got for you for today's video. Keep an eye on these price targets. Like I said, 21,000. If we start breaking below there, it's probably going to get very, very nasty. And then your last line in the sand, 20,600, I talked about this on a range of different charts, is going to be coming into fruition. 20,600 breaks, your short-term price targets would, like I said, down here at 19,800, but the start of this trend was 19,700. That would be in play, and then once you do come down to there, you are going to be once again knocking on the door of Bitcoin's previous all-time high. That's all I got for you today. As always, not financial advice. Cowboy out. Peace.